Good evening, welcome back to the Goon multiplayer spectacular. Revenant Threshold as the Kiso Minamoto is fighting ScotchDK as the Fukuhara Taira, and we're on one each. Jigoku River is our tiebreaker map, so let's see what we've got. We've got a slight mix-up, once again, of the sides. Two bow attendants for Revenant, the two Naginata attendants that he favours so much, the three Nagi attendants, sorry. Two sword attendants, and of course a mounted Naginata. So the mounted samurai didn't work for him too well last match, so he switched that back up, gone back to a much more traditional army build. Over on the other side here, we can see ScotchDK, who has two Naginata attendants, Nagi Monk Hero, Naginata Warrior Monks, two sword attendants, and mounted Naginata. So a very, very similar setup. A little bit monk heavier on ScotchDK's side, and a little bit Naginata heavier as well, but nevertheless, we're two fairly evenly matched teams, which should make for quite an interesting fight. Now, Revenant has dispatched a mounted Naginata to the workshop, knowing full well that it's the most valuable building to claim, but Scotch has countered, and has dispatched two Naginata attendants and popped rapid advance in order to get there in a reasonable time frame. Now, it's unusual to send two. One's really all you'd need to send, because the mounted Naginata won't win a fight if they dismount, and they won't win a fight if they're mounted, and no other unit will get there before you've captured it. So, two's really a waste, and he's taking away from the central power of his force. Now, the three bow levy that Scotch has versus the two bow attendants is a fairly even sort of a fight. It's about the same number of Koku, you'd expect roughly the same casualties. The bow levy are probably a little bit better at Koku for Koku against a low armor unit like the bow attendant with only 3 armor, but the bow attendants can do much more damage, much more likely to kill targets they hit. The sword attendants with 3 armor, the Naginata warrior monks with 5, etc. Of course, the bow levy only have 1 armor, so that extra power you're paying for isn't much use in a straight bow fight, which we will see straight up with the opening salvos being fired. Now, the mounted Naginata has been withdrawn back, and a unit's been left by Scotch to capture the workshop. The sword dojo has already been taken, and so we're going to look, it looks like we're going to have the traditional 1 sword dojo, 1 workshop trade-off that is common. The other one is, of course, the archery dojo, and no one really has enough archers to make a difference. Now, with Revenant sending his mounted samurai, it's a great play, heading straight through the gap towards Scotch's general, but Scotch sees that coming. He's used it himself before, after all, and pulls his unit in and brings his Naginata warrior monks up. Nevertheless, was a worthwhile play. So now this is something I need to explain to some people. You may not know it in multiplayer, but as long as you have not captured the building completely, if your opponent has already captured it, it belongs to your opponent. So this sword attendant here will be reducing the capture level of this sword dojo down to 0, but that won't actually remove the bonus from Revenant unless there's no men of Revenants inside this capture zone. So as long as those bow attendants are sitting there, this is not doing anything. So you really should be using those aggressively. And it's the same thing with cavalry. Cavalry only capture it if they're dismounted. So we've got 2 great charges coming in, sword attendants here, which should smash into these bow levy, and you would expect them to clean them up, although the high armor of the bow levy is going to help in this particular charge. But we have a sword attendant versus sword attendant clash here. Scotch has hit Banzai on his men, so they won't shatter and have the extra attack, and that will mean that those sword attendants of Revenant will not win that fight. So really, the lack of Banzai I'm seeing from Revenant here is going to cost him. He needed Banzai up on both of those so that he got the charge bonus, and it looks like sheer press of numbers has actually routed these sword attendants on the right-hand flank here. So we've got quite good aggression from Revenant with his general pushing forward, and we've got what looks like a good countercharge coming from the rear here, except Revenant has dismounted his mounted Naginata. I'm not entirely sure what that's all about. We've got sword attendants with Banzai slamming into these Nagi attendants, and that should clean them up, but the Tetsubos are going to come in, and the Tetsubos can hold an entire flank by themselves. We'll see how that goes, but the left flank of Revenant is looking in real trouble here, although there's not much happening on Scotch's side. His units are just in disarray, and you can see he's got them in big blocks, and he does the same with his sword units, and it just really minimizes the effectiveness of your charge. Your units need to be wide frontage like Revenant has to maximize the benefits of your charge, although it is harder to protect against cavalry in that way. Now, we've got great harassment once again from Scotch here, who's coming forward to put shots into the Tetsubo Warrior Monk hero, and even though they have high armor and he's going to be shooting his own men in the back, it would be good, but they're driven off by the bow attendants. Now, the Mounted Naginata, they're going to charge forward, and I think they'll do pretty good things. They've got reasonable combat statistics. You can see they're at a slight combat statistic disadvantage because they're dismounted. But they should clean up these bow levy, but the Naginata Warrior Monks are going to clean up them. So, I'm not entirely sure why he dismounted them. It may have been accidental, but it's going to be costly. The Tetsubos, they should clean up these bow levies, no problem at all. There are only 8 of them though, they're getting whittled down, and that's really what Scotch needs to do. It's all about whittling down at this point, but Revenant just doesn't have the numbers to mount a comeback. His general's in standard fight, the half of it's left alive, but he's just not got the troops necessary to win this. He's getting pushed on the right, on the left flank here, Scotch is left, and there's just bow attendants. Bow attendants aren't going to be able to save him from sword attendants, a full Nagi attendant, half Nagi attendant, and his warrior monk hero is still on full strength. So, in a ballsy move by Scotch, he's attacked the Tetsubo with his own general, taking advantage of the moderate charge bonus and melee attack to do the final blow against that, and that's paid off. But if he got unlucky, it could have cost him his general and could still have cost him the match, although at this point, probably not. But that's it. He's cleaned up Revenant. Revenant's forces are shattered, and it was a fantastic match. Both players played really, really well. I'm very impressed by it, and Scotch has managed to hold on. Revenant is, of course, relegated to the losers bracket, where he will be comrades in arms with Scotch, and where now both players will be fighting for their lives. Absolutely fantastic fight. I thought both players did really, really well. If I had to say there was some things, it just lacked a little bit of cohesion. The players left units unattended, dispatched too many forces to one side, didn't support their attacks. The initial attack of the 2 sword attendants from Revenant was not backed up by any of his other units, and so without that support, the sword attendants just didn't want to hang around. They needed Bonsai, they needed to slam in, do great damage, and then just as Bonsai was about to wear off and they'd done the maximum possible damage they could, his army needed to roll in straight up the back because those bow levy of Scotches, they just didn't have anything protecting them. And so that's all, that would have really, really evened the odds. But Scotch played a great game, Revenant played a great game, and I salute both players and look forward to seeing more of them. Thanks for watching, everyone.